we exhaust ourselves. So it's really important to be able to know that's their suffering, that's their pain. I see it, I acknowledge it, I honor it, I extend loving kindness, and I often say to them, what do you need? How can I support you? I don't step in and take over and start doing for them or thinking I'm going to fix it. And I understand, because with empathy, when we're feeling it, sometimes we just don't want to feel it, so we want to fix it. It's not even that we're trying to caretake them, it's just we don't want to feel it. So if we can just fix it, then we don't have to feel it. When actually it's never ours to feel in the first place. All right. Any questions about that? Compassion versus empathy? It's really important because it's hard for us to love ourselves if we're taking on other people's emotions. And if we keep them out there and keep sending them loving kindness, we have that loving kindness for ourselves. Yes? Oh, sorry, I wasn't clear. Thank you for clarifying that. I was saying it was good for us to have empathy, and now I'm saying it isn't. What I meant to say was, as a part of our development, it is good for us to have empathy. When we're young, I remember she must have been 9 or 10 at the time, coming home from school and telling me I said, how was your day? And she told me how every single one of the 27 other kids in her Montessori classroom were feeling that day. And I thought, we need to start talking about boundaries. So it is an important developmental stage to have empathy. But as we mature, we switch that to compassion. Was there another question? Self-love and what? The difference between self-love and selfishness? Yes, selfishness is when it's all about us. It is actually not self-loving to be selfish. It's all about us, and it's all about our agenda and our way and our outcome, and we're attached, and we want to be in control, and we want to be the center of attention, and it's me, 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 me. Self-love is not at all like that. Self-love is just allowing ourselves to be who we are and staying connected to that, knowing we're important as everyone else, not more important. All right, innate goodness. I want to comment on innate goodness. Again, this concept of innate goodness is just a term I've used, but words are limiting, so don't get attached to the language here. But in our culture, our Judeo-Christian culture, we are born into the group mind in our Western culture that there is original sin. Okay? That there's something, we're separate from whatever that's outside of us. There's something wrong, and we need to prove our value, prove we're lovable, prove. In the Eastern cultures, such as Buddhism and Hinduism, you are born under original purity. Okay? That is the group mind, the group consciousness. You are pure when you're born. You are the Bodhisattva. You're pure. There's nothing to be proven. You are lovable. You are worthy. So innate goodness is that inherent right, that inherent way of being that is in all of us, that we are pure, that we are good, and we have nothing to prove. And shame doesn't exist. Shame is the fear that we are unlovable, that we are unworthy, that we are inadequate. So innate goodness is deeply knowing we are lovable, valuable, and enough for who we are, for being who we are, not for doing. And it is really difficult in our culture to maintain our connection to that innate goodness when we are conditioned so much to prove our value, get good grades, right? That conditioning, to prove that we are enough, we are adequate. So I just wanted to comment on innate goodness because it is within all of us, and it isn't something we talk about in our culture. All of you were born with original purity. So what is authentic connection? And this is what's really important for us to consider as we claim our self-love, our innate goodness, and our ability to be compassionate towards ourselves and others. Authentic connection is present moment awareness of our body sensations, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, our experiences, our needs, wants, and desires, and taking responsibility for them. That's the key word, self-responsibility. Authentic connection is when we own what we feel, what we think, what we believe, what our experiences are, what we need, want, and desire, and they're ours. And everybody else's can be different. Today, every single one of you could have a different experience and leave here with a very different experience. And all of them are sacred because they're yours. So authentic connection is being able to take responsibility, not to blame, shame, feel victim, not needing validation and approval from others, but really taking responsibility and not projecting it onto others. This is the greatest stumbling block I have seen in my work with adults. Besides the self-love and the selfishness, they really struggle with that. But this is another big one, is taking responsibility and staying connected to themselves. We so often want to project onto others. We don't want to take responsibility. Because if we do, what happens? We can't blame and shame. We can't be victim. And when I say to people, for 25 years, I've said, what is it that you need, want, and desire? And I can't tell you how many times adults said to me, no one's ever asked me that. No one's ever asked me that. Think about that. How often are you asked, what do you need, want, and desire? And how often do you actually ask yourself that? I'm so busy, myself personally, I do a pretty good job of asking myself that, but I'm so busy responding to everyone else. I have 3 kids and a husband and students and clients and family and friends. It takes intention to stop and say, okay, now what do I need, want, and desire? That is authentic connection. The other side to that is then seeing other people for who they are and allowing them to have their own feelings, thoughts, beliefs, experiences, needs, wants, and desires, which may be different than ours. And the more we do that for ourselves, the more we create that space for the others around us to have their own needs, wants, and desires. We really don't know what other people need, want, and desire. They have to tell us. And when I say to people, well, what is it that you need, want, and desire? And they look at me and go, I have no idea. And I say, good, that's our work. We're going to look at what your options are. You mean you're not going to tell me? No, I'm not going to tell you. That would be too easy. But I will work with you. I will work with you to help you to discover what your options are. The other piece to this is if we see people clearly with all of their strengths and all of their limitations, and we allow them to be responsible for their needs, wants, and desires, we don't get disappointed by them being something else than what we expected. If we truly see them, we don't expect them to be different than they are, and we don't get disappointed when they're not what we think they should be. Now, how many of you done this? Been in a relationship and you're thinking, they've been doing that for 10 years, but tomorrow, they're going to do it different. Okay, I do it too. And when we do that, we're not actually respecting them. We're not actually loving them for who they are. We're still expecting them to be something different than they are. We don't like it when people do it to us, and we do it to others. I want to comment before we do our exercise on disconnection and boundaries. So disconnection is when we abandon ourselves. Again, how many of you have done this? I'm afraid of not belonging. I'm afraid of not fitting in. I'm afraid they're not going to accept me. So I'm going to abandon myself so I can fit in. Anybody? Okay. That's a big danger because we're afraid of being abandoned, so we abandon ourselves to fit in. Sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? So this is why boundaries are important. Boundaries are important because we need to be able to hold ourselves and others accountable. We need to love ourselves and we need to love others enough to know what is ours and what is theirs. Okay, compassion. What we're responsible for, what they're responsible for. Authentic connection. Knowing others are capable even if they do it differently and in their own time and not the way we would do it. And respecting ourselves enough not to compromise and pretzel. I call it pretzeling. Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, if I move this way, maybe they'll like me. No, maybe if I do it this way, they'll like me. Well, maybe they'll be okay if I do it this way. Anybody? Pretzel? And my favorite, I'm really good at this, is that I understand. I understand their destructive behavior, so it makes it okay. It doesn't. This is where accountability comes in. I may understand why they're behaving that way. It still doesn't make it okay to allow myself to be treated that way. Brene Brown says, the greatest barrier to compassion practice is the fear of setting boundaries and holding people accountable. It's much easier to shame and blame. We don't take responsibility then, and we put responsibility onto them. And one last thing about boundary setting, we are setting boundaries with people's behavior. We still love them, we still love ourselves, we stay connected, and we say this is unacceptable behavior. It's not about making them wrong or bad. It's about saying no to their behavior. And yep, sometimes when we do that, that means the relationship is over and we have a loss to grieve. If we don't do that, we lose ourselves because we accommodate, we understand, we justify. It takes us farther from ourselves. So I want to do an exercise with all of you with self-love and innate goodness. So we can end our time together feeling that, giving and receiving, our own self-love. All right, again, no right or wrong way to do this. Rub the heart if you're having difficulty. So I want you to, again, invite you to start. I'd like to invite you to start by closing your eyes, relaxing into your body and into your chair. And just be aware of your breath. Experience your breath. Feel your breath in your body. Feel yourself in your body. And see if you can go back to that feeling of joy if you've lost it. And I'd like to invite you to bring all of your breath, attention, and awareness to your heart center. And just breathe in and out of your heart center, allowing it to expand. I want you to imagine that as you breathe into your heart center, you are breathing in the color pink. And as you breathe out of your heart center, I want you to imagine that you're breathing out blue. And when we breathe, we pause after the inhale, and we pause after the exhale. So as you breathe in the pink and you pause, let it blend with the blue. And as you breathe out the blue, in your pause before the inhale, I want you to allow the blue and the pink to blend. And you'll notice in the blending